Hello, it's Maxine again, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I just had some inspiration that I thought I'd just go for it and make a quick video on. I apologise, it's getting dark here, and my lighting's not great, so I might look a little bit pixelated on some of the screens, but hopefully you can still hear me. I just finished making that introduction to sex and sexuality talk, and I was thinking about God and thinking about those of you that maybe have come across my channel by accident might be wondering what all the God talk is about. And do I belong to some kind of religion or cult or something like that? No, I don't belong to religion. No, I don't belong to a cult. But I'll just give you a little bit of why I think the God stuff is so important. Now, I've not always been a believer or interested in God. As a child, I had the normal kind of English upbringing, an English village, going to the little local church. Actually had some not so good things happen from the vicar of the church when I was very small. So that affected my feelings about church. And there was a period when my mum was a sort of born-again Christian and very enthusiastic, and she was a nicer person for that period of time, but unfortunately didn't last very long, which was sad for her and for us. And then when I was 17, I had my own born-again experience. I went to a music concert, turned out to be a Christian one. This big thing happened in my heart, and I, for 18 months, embraced it fully. Went to a fundamental Baptist church, which unfortunately the fundamental part was the problem, and in the end I was going through a lot of crisis at that time in my life. I think my mum was suicidal again, and there was lots going on at home, but I was really enthusiastic about discovering God and learning about the New Testament in particular, and weirdly at the same time I was doing religious education A-level at school, where we were learning about how the book of the Bible was created, so the mythology, the archaeology, the patriarchal history in which it was born from and which it was written. So we were learning basically historical context of the Bible. And my RE teacher was a wonderful woman, and we had some great juicy discussions about everything. We were allowed to talk about anything and everything in relation to God and spirituality. And she really believed in God, but she believed that not all of the Bible was accurate about God. So she encouraged questioning. The church, on the other hand, did not, and I got actually told off about it. I used to go to these Tuesday meetings where they talked about world events and things, and I remember asking a question about poverty and children's starvation, and they just quoting the Bible back at me, and I was not satisfied with that answer. I wanted to poke around in that a bit more. The truth is they didn't have an answer themselves. A lot of religions don't have the answer to suffering at the moment, and so they didn't want the question. But I got told, "Thou shalt not question the Lord thy God." And then I remember thinking, but he gave me a brain, I'm confused. And I got fed up with their attitudes towards women and their attitudes towards homosexuality, and I just felt very lost and alone, and I walked away and just didn't want anything to do with God either, unfortunately. The church had tainted my view of God, and also my parenting had tainted my view of God, and to me he was just this fiery, grey-bearded, ugly old fella sitting on a stone throne, kind of with his big stick whacking us with different sort of lightning and that. I liked Jesus. I thought he was nice. In the end, I decided that Jesus probably wasn't the Son of God. I didn't quite get the whole crucifixion Trinity thing. Didn't logically make sense to me. But I actually thought that Jesus had come along to kind of encourage us to dump the Old Testament and all that stuff in there, or most of it, all the stories of God asking for genocide and all the crazy laws in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. I guess I thought that Jesus had come along. He was an amazing teacher, and he seemed to know some stuff about life and God that we didn't. And he was just saying, look, it's really simple. It's just about love and honesty, and it's just like, love yourself, love God, love other people, love the place you live in, and that's it. And so, yeah, so I kind of walked away thinking Jesus was a bit of a master teacher, very nice bloke, and but God, not sure about. And then in my 30s, I started to open up, I guess, to sort of spiritual things in some way. I kind of was in a place in my life of great change and started to read some books on various topics, opened my mind. I had a mediumship session, my first one, and was shocked by how much this woman knew about my life. So I started to wonder, and then I was on my own one night and I very loudly heard my grandmother's voice telling me that everything was going to be okay, and she'd passed 10 years before that, so but it was a very, very real experience, and I had an experience that night of there being quite a lot of spirits in the room. So I just started to read books on all sorts of topics, from healing, I don't know, just metaphysical views of life, I guess, and open up to that a little bit. And then in my early 40s, after quite a rough couple of years, I dived into the New Age world, quite big, for maybe about 3-4 years before that changed. Got very much into it, realised that I could channel lots of things, and lots of people liked me channeling lots of things. Started to believe in reincarnation because I started to have memories of past lives. But then again, a bit like my experience in the church, I was interested, but then I started to ask questions. There seemed to be a lot of mystery again in the New Age, and in fact it was celebrated. Mystical things were celebrated. There's a lot of stuff about being special, about coming from other planets, and us all being on a mission, light workers, and the general feeling was, the idea was to kind of, the best thing to do was possibly not be on Earth, and we were just being here as a favour. And just so much stuff that I started to question, because also I was going to workshops and doing things on womb wisdom, which was totally connected to my sexual injuries, by the way, and a lot of dodgy stuff in that. And I was starting to see people with happy, clappy, smiley faces that were actually avoiding life, weren't being responsible, didn't want to be part of the system, but were living off the system, were clappy, but actually were feeling really angry. The goddess movement, because I moved to Glastonbury in the UK, which is like the New Age capital of the UK, and the goddess week every year, I couldn't even be there for more than 5 minutes, because all I could feel was anger and rage from women towards men. So yes, I got pretty, I ended up in quite a dodgy relationship, sexual addictive relationship with a spiritual man. That happens a lot, and all sorts of things started to raise questions. And I just came home one day, and I didn't actually ever say the word God since I left the church. I used some New Age terms and went through various beliefs about different versions of God in that, but in the end, the one I came most comfortable with was Great Spirit, the more Native American version of God I preferred than, say, the one that God was consciousness belief. But I came home that day and I shouted out, God, if you're there, I want the truth, the absolute truth. I'm so pissed off with all this nonsense and nothing feels real and what's going on. Much to my surprise, I got a very quick answer within a few hours, and somebody sent me the Secrets of the Universe videos, which are the videos from the Divine Truth channel, which give you an overview of what Divine Truth teaching is about. And I sat there and I went, oh my God, two things. God seems to have answered, so does that mean God exists? And two, this stuff was coming at me from the screen, and I was just feeling in my soul, wow, this is it, it's what I've been waiting for. Wow, and you answered my prayer, and what does all this mean? And I started to watch Divine Truth and learn about God again, I guess, a different view of God from religion, and a very different view of any kind of God from the New Age movement. And, for a while I had my feet in both camps, but Divine Truth just kept pulling me. And through the Divine Truth teachings, I learned that there were two paths to spirituality. Spirituality is about growing in love. That's it in a nutshell, really. It's about becoming a more loving and better person, and looking at more potentials and possibilities in that space. And I've learned through Divine Truth teachings, and they make an awful lot of sense to me, is there are two paths. There's a natural love path and there's the divine love path, or God's way, as I refer to a lot, or Divine Truth teachings, as I refer to a lot. The natural path is we are born souls with the ability to grow in what's called natural love. So that's love that humans grow from within their soul, towards each other, towards themselves, towards their environment. And as you grow in this natural love, you can start to heal things within you to become a more loving person, get rid of some of the error beliefs in you, and you can reach on this path a state of human perfection, where you have gotten rid of all the error that's connected to your views of natural love. And you are a loving person, you're more developed, and you have got rid of most of your error. And that path encompasses many different belief systems, but also none. So some people just become more loving people through a process of going through healing themselves without any particular belief system in that. So some religions come into this category. So even like Christian church or the Muslim, which talk about God, there will be people in those churches that do connect with God sincerely at times. But the churches themselves are often based on kind of sets of morals that you should follow, and not always about a personal relationship with God. In fact, a lot of religions encourage there to be an intermediary between you and God. You have to be a special person to connect with God, who can then convey messages towards the average person. And the same is in the New Age movement, where you have gurus who are like prophets, who people believe are connected to a higher source and then relay the truth that way. So to me, that's more natural love, because it's not personal relationship with God. And it's a good thing. It's good to grow in love. But Jesus teaches that path takes, it's a long, slow progress to heal. And I've tried to heal that way. And it means looking at every nitty gritty thing yourself, and there's a lot of mind stuff in it. And my experience with the New Age movement was there's a lot of mind shifts, but the heart was behind. It was dragging behind, and they weren't matching up. But yes, so to grow in natural love is always a good thing. To grow in love is always a good thing. But that path itself is more self-reliant. It's quite intellect-based. It can bring you some happiness, for sure, because the Earth currently is in what we call a first sphere condition. And in the natural love path, you can reach a sixth sphere condition, which is a much, much better condition of love. And so it's a good thing, but it's a slow path. It's a very self-reliant path, and it encompasses a lot of belief systems and philosophies in the world at the moment. But you do not heal 100% everything. Even though you become a perfected human, there are emotions we all have, based on the truth that we are God's children, about God and about ourselves in relation to God, that aren't healed in people that follow on the natural love path. So technically, because of that, you can regress. So you can progress on it, but you can regress backwards as well. Most people don't choose to do that because they realise how painful it was to live in an unloving way. So they've got a strong motivation to stay in a loving place. What I've discovered with Divine Truth teachings with God's way is that God's way is about God reliance, and is about a personal relationship with God. It is about having a sincere and passionate longing to receive God's love into your heart, to allow God's love to transform your soul. Now, it's not a magic wand. It's not that you receive God's love and you do nothing yourself. It's not about saviour stuff. It's not about any of the some of the belief systems in a lot of religions, which is about someone saving us or about someone being sacrificed to save us. That's not it. God wants us to be self-responsible. And the other day I was sitting thinking, like, I've been really, really, really self-reliant. And in many ways that helped me survive as a child. But it's become self-reliant. And what's the difference between self-reliance and self-responsibility? And God wants us to be self-reliant, self-responsible, not self-reliant. And one of my issues with God-reliance is I feel that God-reliance is dependency, and that I might get hurt in that dependency. That's my error talking, though. Self-responsibility is all-encompassing. It's when you're humble in self-responsibility. I think self-reliance is actually a very arrogant place to be. You feel like to be self-reliant, you've almost got to say to yourself that you know stuff that you don't. I know this, so I'm self-reliant. I know it, but we don't actually always know it. But with God-reliance and self-responsibility, God's saying, I know that you're an incredible being and that you can be totally responsible for your life. You can be totally responsible for healing all of the emotions in yourself. You can be totally responsible for bringing more joy into your life and following passions and desires. You can be totally responsible in many ways for improving your life and for reaching the potential that I want you to believe. You can do all that, and you can be responsible for yourself financially, physically, emotionally, psychologically, in every way, because that's the way I made you to be. But however, you can also be soft and open to receiving my love all the time and letting my love help your soul grow and letting you grow in a quicker way, because God's love will expose the error in us at a much faster rate. God's love will support us in our healing, and we can heal much quicker, and we can progress infinitely. When you do the natural love path, you can only progress to the 6th sphere. When you progress in God's way, you can just keep going and keep going. And there are currently, I think Jesus says, 36 spheres. You cannot get into the 7th and 8th sphere if you're on the natural love path, because you need to want a personal relationship with God to go on that path. And why though? If you can be happy in the 6th sphere, why go into the 7th and 8th sphere? My best experience of that is listening to a mediumship that Jesus and Mary channeled. I think it was with Sebastian. I'll remember it and I'll put it underneath. And Sebastian was a 6th sphere spirit who they spoke to, and when they first spoke to him, they were having this conversation, and it was interesting. And yes, he felt he felt very calm man, and he talked about some happiness that he has in the 6th sphere and some of the wonderful things that happen in the 6th sphere. But then through the conversation with Jesus, he opens up to God, and the next time they speak to him, he's moved into the 7th sphere. And honestly, he just feels so different. The first time I heard it, I just burst into tears because I could feel the difference between the two conditions. The richness and the depth and the realness of somebody in the 7th sphere compared to that same person's 6th sphere was just different. It felt like they'd come alive. They were softer. They were more animated. Just amazing, just beautiful. And also the Robert James Lee books, Through the Mist, The Life Elysian, and the Gates of Heaven. They're a trilogy of books where Afra, who passed, I think, the end of the 19th or early 20th century, I can't remember exactly, then came back to Earth and channeled through Robert James Lee his life in spirit world, and he's on God's way. And those books are the best and my most favourite books of all time, because we get to see and get to revealed what living God's way is about, and how amazing that is, and the beautiful places in spirit world that are created for us to enjoy as we progress in love. So God's way is not about God wanting to take from us. God's way is about God giving to us the gift of her perfect love. So we get to experience what it's truly like to be loved unconditionally. We get to experience a sense of worth by feeling God's love that we have never experienced on earth. And we get to also in that place be ourselves, because God wants to be ourselves. So God wants to give us, he's calling us home. That's what God's way is. He's calling us home to the potential of a life that he's already got waiting for us. He's not saying you have to come to me because I need. He's not needy about us. He's just saying, I want you, my children, to have the best and most possible life that I can give you, and this is the way. And this is the way where you can heal everything. And this is the way that you can live with your soulmate and grow with your soulmate. And this is the way that you can move into the soul union state in the 36th sphere and become one with each other. So in the 8th sphere, you'll become at one with God. So that means you've healed everything, and you can receive God's love all of the time and receive God's truth as well. And you can develop in that. And at 36 spheres, the other half of your soul and you join back together again, which I can't really conceive at the moment. What's that like? We're so self-reliant, we're so convinced that this one body is us, that to see ourselves as joined with someone, a lot of people, when I say that, have said to me, but I don't need anyone, I'm not whole, I don't need another half to make me whole, as though by saying that you're half a soul means you're any less than you are. It's not attached to your worth that you're half a soul. That's not the thing. That's just the truth, that we are half a soul, and that we do need there is another half that will complete us. So there's all these beautiful things on God's way, and part of the journey with this is unlearning all of the bad things you thought about God. And when I look at my list that I did a couple of weeks ago about my feelings towards God, when I reread them back, I was like, that's my mother, that's my mother, that's my father, that's my mother, that's my father, that's my mother. Actually none of those emotions, maybe a couple to do with religion, were all basically projections towards God, actually are ones I'm avoiding, about feeling about my parents. That's the real brutal truth. And so sometimes I can feel that I've been trying to process emotions about God that actually are emotions about my mum. Some are not true emotions about God, because they're actually about, say, my mum or my dad. But yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, I've investigated lots of stuff over the years. I am a very curious person. I do like learning. I've dipped my toes in various religions and belief systems and tried quite a number of things out, and I've never come across anything that felt more real and more rich than God's way, than divine truth teachings. And now that I'm embracing it more, and the less I resist it, the more I feel that, and I feel passionate about it, and not because I'm not because I'm in some kind of special group or anything. I feel passionate about it because it's bringing me more happiness. It's bringing me more truth about myself and my life. It's teaching me self-compassion. But it's also giving me the potential of really feeling what having a loving parent feels like. It's giving the potential of really having that special relationship with a soulmate, that one I used to dream about when I was younger. The one I always used to dream, and I dream. And also through that, learning, the more I learn about God and more about life in spirit world, in the higher spheres, I just see, wow, there's all this potential, and I've stopped even worrying, like, I'm not completely happy where I live at the moment. I'd like a bit more space. But the other part of me is like, I'm more interested now in the home I'm creating for myself, spiritually, the more loving I can become right now, the more I can heal right now. I'm creating a beautiful home for myself. I've already imagined it, so hopefully one day I shall get there. No, I will get there. I'm going to change my language. I will get there. It's just taking me a bit longer through my own fault than I thought. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, this God stuff, don't judge it by what your parents have told you, what your church has told you, what society's told you, what science has told you. Because that's the other thing, science and spirituality are not separate. Like, God is the best scientist in my eyes. He created the nature. This is where I really start to connect with God, first of all, is nature. And you look at nature and it's just amazing. And I just do not believe it came from an explosion. or that we evolved in the way that we think we evolved. It doesn't quite make sense to me. There's gaps in our history that we don't know yet, that's for sure. And I think when I look at nature, all I can see is I can see that's birthed from love, that it has to be birthed from love for it to be so perfect, before we damage it, of course, but so perfect, so harmonious, so beautiful. It's mathematical, it's scientific, but it's beautiful, it's artistry as well. It's all these different aspects of God right in front of us to show us about God, and to look for the truth. So just be aware that you will have in you a load of false beliefs and possible resistances to believing in God, wanting to know God, or believe that God would want to know you. And that issue is, I think, a hard one for a lot of us. When, for me, I really sort of struggle to let God's love in, because I just don't feel deserving of it, or I'm scared of what that love will do because I'm not used to it. I don't know, lots of things. So the God stuff's important, and I will talk about it. And you don't have to listen to me if you're not interested in God's side of it, which is fine. But what I'm saying is that, start just being curious about it. You just start being curious about it. If there's even the slightest potential that I might be right about what I'm saying, if there's the slightest potential that Jesus and Mary might be right about what they're talking about, then I would get curious about it. Because the truth is, we do not have definite proof that God does not exist. The same as we do not have definite proof that life does not begin at conception. And until we have those definite proofs in that other way, that God doesn't exist, why would you not potentially see that maybe you should investigate if God does exist? But also, don't you want the best life for yourself and for each other? Would you like the idea of maybe being with your ideal partner, your soulmate? Would you like the idea of being in the spirit world with people that you really like and want to hang out with, and you don't have to hang out with anyone that's you're not kind of got things, common interests in place? There's so much potential, and on God's way, and infinitely, and I can't comprehend infinitely. Time in spirit world does not exist like it does here. Here it's quite slow and heavy in some ways. Things can happen a lot faster there. But we can get to experience all these amazing things. Some of them we've already experienced in sleep state. So, when we go to sleep, our spirit bodies, because we have two bodies, our physical and spirit bodies carry on doing stuff. It's only our physical body that needs a rest. So when I've had dreams at night that I'm lifting my body off of the ground and flying across the room, which I always love, and there's been some times when I've been really open, when I've literally gone over oceans and mountains, and you can do that in your spirit body. And these are just basic stuff. So I always think, if this is what it can be like in this current soul condition, what on earth can it be like when you hit the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th? What on earth's happening? And the Robert James Lee books will tell you about some of the things that are happening in spirit world, in the dimensions above the first sphere, and it's just amazing. And I guess my view is be curious, be open to the possibility, but also, if you desire to really know what love is, and if you desire to really understand what truth is, if you really desire to find the best life for yourself, and to feel the embrace, the deep and loving, rich embrace of your Father, Mother, God, to feel that perfect sense of worth, and that God is absolutely amazed and astounded and delighted by you, and your personality, and just as God is probably amazed by herself. I mean, understanding God, that's an infinite journey, I imagine. So the God stuff does matter. It matters to me, obviously, but it does matter, and it's a huge difference, I think, for me anyway, between the natural love path and the God's way, the divine love path. There's a huge difference between the two, and one to me just feels much richer, you know. One's like a sort of a hot chocolate made with water, like just cocoa powder and water. That to me is the natural love path. So there's a bit of chocolate tastes all right, but you know, something's missing. The divine love path is like the best hot chocolate in the world. It's made with full cream milk, cream on top, couple of Maltesers or whatever stuck on top, whatever you like with your hot chocolate. Like it's a rich, full-on, beautiful, indulgent, abundant hot chocolate that you're really going to sit there and think, this is the best thing I've ever had. To me, that's what God's way is more like. Whereas the natural love path is a really basic hot chocolate made with a bit of water, maybe a splash of milk if you're lucky, and you get your little taste of chocolate, and it gives you a certain amount of happiness, but it does not compare to this really rich, abundant hot chocolate. So the God stuff matters and God's way matters, and just encourage you to be a little curious and to not block it out if you can, and not give yourself the best opportunity of happiness. So that was it. That's just my bit of inspiration for tonight. All right, take care. Bye.